Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, Episode 8. In today's podcast, dear listener, you will hear the tale of Jen's recent experience of major surgery, her reflections on the importance of doing something you love, and the challenge of resting for a person who is always busy. You know, in contemporary North American culture, where everyone seems too busy all the time, perhaps we can all, along with Jen, take heed of the White Rabbit's words to Alice during her time in Wonderland. Don't just do something. Sit there.
Hey everybody, welcome to the CD podcast, Communication Diva, the podcast that explores all areas of communication in the hopes that you will find something of value that will help you to deepen your own relationships. So today I do not have a featured guest, but rather I will be talking about a few things that do have to do with communication and maybe a few things that don't. One thing you might have noticed if you are looking on the website is the new little logo that is on the podcast episodes, the last episode and this latest episode. And the logo says Stitcher Smart Radio, which means that you can hear our show on Stitcher Smart Radio now. What that is it's a program that allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, your Android phone, your Kindle Fire, anything that you can pack around pretty much. And there are over 5,000 podcasts and radio shows on Stitcher Smart Radio. So you can go find the application, go find Stitcher Smart for free at Stitcher.com or in any of the app stores. And hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have a little button right on the website that you can click on and get the app right from our website. So that's what that little logo is about. I thought I'd just mention it. Stitcher Smart Radio. I am, first off, coming to you today from my living room couch. And it's a fairly good-looking day outside, as far as I can see. I am recording this on February 2nd, which is Groundhog Day here in North America, and I'm not sure if Groundhog Day is something that is international or not. If anyone in the listening audience could let me know, that would be great. But I heard today that spring is coming soon, according to the little creatures that apparently pop out and check to see if they see a shadow or not. So my understanding is that they did see a shadow and spring is coming soon. I think I have that right. Anyway, the reason I am coming to you today from my couch is that I am post-op Day 6, having had a hysterectomy last Friday. And so, although you won't be hearing this until Monday or later, I thought I would record this today while I have some energy. I wanted to first tell you about my surgical adventure and how communication made all the difference. Then I wanted to talk about how loving what you do is essential. And then I wanted to talk about how difficult it is for me to sit still here doing basically nothing, which is not my style at all. And then I wanted to talk about a little new group that I'm part of and maybe a couple of other little bits, but I'll try not to be too long. So here we go. My surgery. It's been a long time coming. I've been having all sorts of troubles, the details of which I will not bother you with. But suffice to say, I've been waiting months for this date. And I was booked for January 25th, which was last Wednesday. And getting ready for surgery is no small thing, as I'm sure many of you are aware. I had to get ready organizationally, I had to get ready physically, and I had to get ready emotionally. As some of you may know from previous episodes or reading things on the blog, I have 2 day jobs. My first is a college job, and for that, a substitute had to be hired, and all my materials had to be made available to the new teacher, etc. And so I've been answering questions, and I'm still teaching online because I can do that from my couch with my laptop. But even my online students had to be warned that I'd be offline for at least a week due to this surgery. My other job is my church job, where I am a children, youth, and family minister part-time. And I'm responsible for all sorts of things like organizing a monthly coffee house open mic night that's run by the youth. That's lots of fun. I am overseeing the Sunday school programming and the youth programming, and I also am the chair or coordinator or whatever they call it for planning and organizing the summer vacation Bible school. And this church starts planning in January for that because it's a fairly large event. So all this to say that I had to set up a wonderful group of volunteer people at the church to organize and lead these things because my recovery time is somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. And so it took a lot of work to organize everybody at both jobs. And my colleague and lead minister is also going to be taking a sabbatical for 4 months starting in April, and I've been asked to take over some of her duties. So I will be needing to get ready for preaching regularly and doing all sorts of that stuff. So lots and lots and lots of stuff to organize and prepare for before I was able to hand everything over and concentrate on myself. So that was the organizational piece. The physical piece of getting ready for surgery involved all sorts of prep, a visit to the hospital a week before, having blood work, etc., not eating for several hours before, and a lovely prep that involved being in the bathroom for some time the night before. Fun and games. So here came the morning of the 25th, and my dear husband took me to the hospital, and my mom showed up there as well, and we waited for literally hours. I had to be there a couple of hours before the scheduled time. I had an IV started in my hand that the nurse actually couldn't get done initially, so she was digging around, and that really wasn't very fun. Then some antibiotics were hung up, and some medications were given to me to dry up stomach acid, and all of that. I was scheduled to go into the surgical theater at 10:45, but that time came and went, and we soon heard that the morning case that was in there was proving to be more difficult than it should have been and was going to take a lot longer than expected. So I ended up getting delayed. And then eventually, another couple of hours later, a couple of hours after I was supposed to have had the operation, I was given the little blue operating room hat to put over my hair, and I was wheeled by stretcher into the operating room waiting bay, which is the area just outside the theater doors, and had to wait there some more. Then my surgeon came over, and she looked frazzled, and this is where the communication came in. She said she was very sorry, but my surgery was not going to be able to be done today. The morning case went way too long. Now there was a baby in distress that she needed to do an emergency cesarean section on the mom, so the baby could be born. And by the time all that was going to be done, there would be no more nurses left on shift in the recovery room. So she also said very honestly and openly that she was exhausted and that I really didn't want an exhausted surgeon working on me. That was just flat out honest communication, and she looked me in the eye, and she looked very apologetic, and frankly she looked awful. She was tired, and she was stressed out. So of course I was devastated. I had built up to this event for months. It takes a long time here in Canada because of our healthcare system. It doesn't cost, which is great, but you are on a wait list forever. And when it's a surgery that's not an emergency, you can get bumped. So I had waited and waited and waited. I was nervous about the surgery. I've worked for years in healthcare, so a little knowledge is dangerous, And I'd never really had major surgery before, except for tonsillectomy when I was 7 or something that I don't remember very well. And everything had been in place, and everybody had been in place for this to happen that day. But, it was pretty hard to argue. Emergencies happen. A baby's life was at stake. And really, I didn't want a tired surgeon messing around with my body parts. So there was nothing, there was nothing to say about it. That's how it worked. We don't have money in our healthcare system for anybody to stay overtime. And in the recovery room at that particular hospital, the nursing shifts end at 3:30. So that's just the way it is. So they unhooked me from everything, and I was told to go home and call the office to rebook. quite anticlimactic, I must say. So my mom and Scott and I went out for a burger because I needed comfort food. I needed something greasy, and to heck with it. We went to Fat Burger and had a really delicious burger, but I was kind of a mess. I was kind of emotionally exhausted. When we got home, I called the doctor's office and I was told that the next available surgical date was 4 weeks later, February 24th. And at that point, after everything I'd been through, I pretty much burst into tears. How was that going to work? I had been so organized. My medical leave payments at both jobs were going to kick in so that I didn't lose any income. My people were organized to look after everything. My husband had arranged to work from home for that week so he could be around. And the only word that I could think of that was accurate is a French word. And the word is désolé. And désolé is how I felt. It was not a great day. However, I remained somewhat hopeful and resigned because I was at the top of the cancellation list. And thankfully, I didn't have to wait long. The next day, the office called to say that someone had come down with the flu and had to be canceled for Friday morning. And did I want the spot? Sorry for the person that had the flu, but frankly, I was thrilled, which is kind of an odd thing to feel about having major surgery. And I was able to set about getting all ready once again, and with a few minor adjustments, it was going to work out. So despite having to go through more evening prep and bathroom visits and another IV poke and more antibiotics, etc., everything went well the next morning. The surgeon came to see me in the little operating room bay waiting area again, and she was grinning, and she said, "I am so glad you didn't have to wait." And she took my hand. And you know what? She really meant it. She had that human connection that sometimes is not always associated with people in doing the job that she does. And she asked if I had any questions, and then off she went to get ready. The anesthetist turned out to be somebody that I had worked with at another hospital years ago, and she came over to see me as well and asked questions and answered my questions. And then I got wheeled into the operating room theater itself. And it was funny. I scooched over onto the operating table. And as I did that, I looked around and noted that all of the people on the whole team were women. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. There were a couple of nurses. There was a student nurse, and then there was the surgeon and the anesthetist. And they put this big paper thing over my chest called a bear hugger. And the surgeon explained that it would fill up with warm air and keep me toasty and cozy during the surgery. And one of the things that was really helpful with my anxiety level was that the explanation of things and what was going to happen and what things were for as they were hooking me up to things. Very good communication. Sometimes when you're in an unfamiliar situation and people come and do things to you and don't say what it is they're doing or why they're doing it, it can be frightening. And again, I've worked in hospitals, but I haven't had surgery myself. So to have that explained to me was really calming and really helpful. And it was funny, one of the nurses said, "It'll be like being at the spa and you'll have all your beautiful spa assistants here to help you and look after you." And I said, "Yeah, the only thing that'll be missing is the music and the tea." And so one of them got a huge smile on her face and just about bounced over to the side wall and said, "We have music." And she turned on a boombox that was sitting up on a shelf. And instantly, AC/DC filled the air and everybody burst out laughing. And I was thinking, I never could have imagined, in all the imaginings that I had around going into this situation, that we would be having a really good laugh in the operating room moments before I was put to sleep, right? So you never know what's going to happen in a day. So then it was time to get going, and the surgeon came over once again, and she took my hand in hers. And as the anesthetist was doing something with my IV, the surgeon looked me in the eye, and very quietly, she said, as she had my hand held in both of hers, and she was rubbing my arm up and down, and she said, "You will be just fine. We are going to take very, very good care of you, Jen." She said, "You will be fine." And that little bit of communication was just absolutely calming. And, I thought I can relax, I can breathe, and I can trust. And it was because of her amazing bedside manner and the way that she used her communication skills. And, sometimes I think it's not so much what's done to us, but it's how people treat us and how people relate to us that we remember. And so that is something I will never forget, is that tiny moment when she made that connection and was looking at me like a human being, not a body full of parts on a table that needed to be fixed, Very shortly after that, I was gone, and I woke up a few hours later in my room, and I was told that all had gone very well. It was actually a shorter time in the operation than they had anticipated. I was in a room with two men when I woke up, one of whom spluttered and coughed this really mucky, wet cough continually, and at night he snored. So that wasn't so great. When he wasn't making all sorts of noise, he had hordes of loud visitors who stayed for long periods of time and discussed all sorts of things like politics. And, it was absolutely exhausting. And he also didn't like the fact that I kept my curtain pulled around my bed. Mostly I had it around my bed. I could still see out the window, but I had it pulled. And he said very loudly he didn't like that. He liked to have everything open so that he could see. But, first of all, I'm in a co-ed room, which is a new thing around here. And second of all, I've had quite, a feminine type surgery. I've got a catheter. The nurses are coming in and doing things to my body. And I really didn't feel like being on display. And so I wasn't really going to give any consideration to the fact that he didn't happen to like me having my curtain closed. Anyway, there wasn't much sleep to be had that night. And I had these squeezy things on my legs. They're called compression stocking machines. They have hoses to them. They're these paper things that Velcro onto your legs, and they go from your ankle all the way up to your thigh. And they have air hoses that run to a little machine that's at the end of the bed. And every moment, one leg would be squeezed completely and then would stop, sort of like a blood pressure cuff that squeezes, and then the other leg. And this is to prevent blood clots from happening, because when you've had major surgery, it is possible, and you're not moving around immediately, it is possible to have blood clots form. So this was a preventative thing, but I found it was pretty near impossible to fall asleep with all of that going on. So I was never so glad as to be told on Saturday afternoon when the surgeon came back that I could go home and go back to my own bed and my own food. Yuck, hospital food. So that was my little surgical adventure. And something that was pretty unbearable and uncomfortable and anxiety-provoking was made more bearable because of the great communication skills of some of the people I encountered. So again, the surgeon whose bedside manner was fantastic, and some of the nurses who were friendly and caring and patient. And one thing I noticed is you can tell when people are doing what they love to do and doing it because they feel called to do it rather than just doing a job because they have to. I'm sure you've encountered this. It doesn't matter how hard you try to hide it. If your heart isn't in what you're doing, it shows, I know for myself, there have been times in my life where I didn't want to be doing what I was doing. And although the body was still there, going through the motions and doing an adequate job of it, when the heart wasn't there, it showed. And I could feel it in myself that I wasn't doing the best that I could be doing. Because once you stop loving it or stop feeling passionate and motivated, other people do pick that up. I don't know if it's an energy or a vibe or what it is. You might not be saying anything or even doing anything overtly that says you don't want to be there, but somehow you are still communicating that with your non-verbal communication, which is incredibly powerful. I'm sure yourself that when you meet people who love what they do, there's a certain kind of energy involved that just shines through them. I'm sure you can think of people that you've run into in different areas of life that just love what they do and do it with such passion. I took a course last November at a place called the Justice Institute here in BC, and it's a place that trains all sorts of people for police work and firefighters, I think, and security guards, and they also do a lot of coaching training, and that's what I was doing, was some training in conflict coaching. And there was a woman in the cafeteria who was the sandwich making person, and that was her job. And I was there for this course, and every day went down, and there she was making the sandwiches. And she would make these custom sandwiches for each person who came up to order them. And the care and the attention she paid to each person she made a sandwich for was something to behold. She took her time despite a lineup, and nobody complained, because I think these people recognized that this woman was putting everything in to the work she was doing and constructing each sandwich with care. And she looked people in the eye, and that might sound funny, but it actually wasn't. She did her job, and she did it well, and she obviously cared about each person that came up to her station. And it sort of got me thinking, it's not at all what you do for a living, but it's how you do what you do that can have such an impact upon other people. And I've been thinking about that for a while, and I've been thinking about that person and about several other people that I've met through the years who very obviously were loving what they were doing, no matter what it was. And that's my other thing I wanted to talk about. How about you? Do you love what you're doing for a living? And if you don't, why are you doing it? What's stopping you from living out your passions and doing something that energizes you and gives you life? Oh, no, there's my phone going. I might have to edit this. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't think to shut the phone off that's in the other room, and I can't move very fast right now, so I hopefully will have edited that out. So I was asking you if you're doing what you love to do for a living, and if not, are you willing to risk? Can you figure out a way to love getting up every morning? Because you'll actually be much healthier and happier for it if you can. And it's easy to say, and there are so many of us that are doing some of the things we love and some of the things that we're doing just because we need to make an income, or we need to provide for other people, or we have debt responsibilities, etc. And something that I really was struck by was the the phone doesn't ring for hours, and all of a sudden it rings twice in a row while I'm doing the recording. The video that I remember... The video that I remember watching and being struck by was the Steve Jobs recording of the speech he made at a university convocation a few years back, in which he made a great case for doing what you love, because we do have one chance. And if you haven't listened to this already, I encourage you to listen to it. I'll I'll try and put a link to it on my site at www.communicationdiva.com if you haven't had a chance to see it. It was everywhere after he died, so I imagine that most of you have seen it. But if you haven't, go to the website and to the show notes for this episode. This is episode 8, communicationdiva.com/08, and I will try and put a link to that Steve Jobs video. It's well worth the watch. It's very motivational and very true. And you know, my two oldest kids are in university, and they are both following their passion. They are both one of them's graduating this year, the other one is just beginning, and they are both in the musical theater program. And they get a lot of flack for that. You know, a lot of their friends are off doing science degrees and, you know, business degrees and all the rest of it. And my thought is follow your passion, follow your dream, because when you're that young, you know, you have a chance to do what you want to do with your life. And if it doesn't work out and you have to go do something else later, that's fine. But I think it's better to do it that way almost than doing it the other way, getting stuck into a job that you really don't like, and then having a harder time switching, you know, the older you get. So, but people do it. It doesn't really matter. If you're doing something that you don't like doing, it might be worth sitting down and saying, why am I doing this? And how can I possibly change this so that I'm doing something that I love getting up for every morning, you know? Okay, so this brings me to the art of being non-busy, which was something that I threw into the title here. My husband Scott tells me that this next several weeks will be a great learning opportunity for me in this regard. I am not a person to sit idle, and I never have been, but I'm finding that even taking a shower exhausts me, and then I get frustrated. And I'm kind of wondering what this is all about, you know? I know that my job right now is to heal and to rest so that I can get back to my crazy, frantic hamster wheel life, and to do so with energy and vigor. And here I sit looking around the house at all sorts of things that need doing or could be doing, and yet I'm not allowed to bend or squat or lift anything heavier than 10 pounds. And so I find this really, really frustrating. I'm reading novels, which I haven't done in years, because I have to read textbooks because I'm taking courses. I'm napping. I'm playing on my laptop. I'm hanging out on Twitter, and I'm checking my email. And I'm looking to see how many of you have listened from around the world and whether or not you've made any comments, which not many of you have, by the way. So just to amuse me or humor me, or even just to give me something to do, I would really appreciate it if you head over to www.communicationdiva.com and say hello. Really, I would. If there's anything you want me to cover in future episodes, let me know that too. But I would really appreciate the distraction right now, seeing as I can't really be up and around doing too much. My question is, have you ever been forced to slow down or to stop doing what you normally do? And if so, how did that go for you? What tips might you have for me as I recuperate in these next weeks? And I would appreciate that. Patience is the grace that I'm asking for right now, as I have to content myself with being fairly non-productive and in letting other people look after things. And when you're used to being fairly high functioning, it's not easy to do. I guess I should stop complaining though, hey? The last thing, or next to last thing I wanted to tell you about is the podcast mastermind group that I have just joined, and I'm really quite excited about it. It's an online group that has been put together by Cliff Ravenscraft over at podcastanswerman.com. And he has gathered together a group of us who want to learn more about podcasting and to take our brands and our businesses to the next level. And for this, we've had to make a significant commitment to be involved in the community, meaning that we will be meeting twice monthly for about 90 minutes each time via Skype. We will be joining in forum discussions and learning from each other. And each group has about 10 members in it that Cliff will be facilitating. and we have different time slots that we have to meet. And there are people from all over the world. I was back and forth with somebody from the UK, and there's somebody from Denmark there, and then people from the US and Canada, and I'm not sure where else yet. So it's quite exciting. Cliff is going to share his knowledge and wisdom with all of us, and I'm sure I'll be talking more about this over the coming year. You may notice some changes in the website or in the podcast formats, and if you do, they will likely be a direct result of things that I'll be learning. So watch out. I want to take Communication Diva to a whole new level, and I would love for you to come with me. So I'm looking to get some new equipment over the next year to upgrade the sound quality, and I'm moving things around on the website all the time and just trying to see what works. So I please ask you to please consider signing up for the RSS feed and the free newsletter. Come and say hi to me on Facebook or join my Twitter community. I'm just getting started over at Google+, and I have a few pages submitted to stumble upon, but I would love for others to submit more of them if they find any of them useful or interesting. Anything you can do to help spread the word about what I'm trying to do here is most appreciated. Well, I'm pretty tired now, and I seem to have used up my energy reserve for today. I hope you got something of value out of my long-winded ramblings today, and if not, I hope that you at least got to know me just a little bit better. My guest for next week will be Stefano Giulianetti, who is an actor, an educator, and a good friend of mine. And we will be discussing together the power of body language, which is something that is extremely important to pay attention to in communication, but that we sometimes forget about. Stefano will be promoting a play that he's in next month here in Vancouver, and there will be a poster on the show notes for that episode. That's episode 9. It won't be up yet, but it will be up when the show is published. And that poster will have all of the info and a really great picture of him. So if you want to have a look at his lovely blue eyes, it will be there for you to look at. Okay, friends, that's all for today. My sincere thanks for all the prayers and good wishes I have received from many of you over the last couple of weeks. Take care of yourselves and be well. This is Jen Swanson for CommunicationDiva.com, saying goodbye till next time.